All right, welcome, boys and girls, to another episode of the IDP Plus podcast. I am Steve Thomason, aka Dynasty Santa, and I'm joined tonight by a very special guest, an OG IDP guy, now a straight up football guy. We've got Joey the Tooth joining us. How you doing, Joey?
I'm doing great, man. It's nice to be back.
Yeah, I don't know if you recognize the background, but we're using the old IDP Lounge
Oh
background.
yeah, oh
I
yeah,
think you and me have crossed paths there back in the old
definitely.
days.
Yeah, as soon as I came on, I was like, yeah, I know that.
Yeah, familiar face and
Yep.
familiar home here. So, yeah, definitely thank you for joining us. And we've got really, I think, going to be a really fun and informative episode for everyone here today. We are going to be going through the levels and positions of the defense, kind of explaining in real football terms what they are, what they do, and how we can relate that to fantasy and IDP and get takeaways and learn look for guys to target and things of that nature. So how does that sound?
Oh, I love it. I'm ready for it.
Excellent. So we're going to jump right in and get started with defensive tackles. So something that I always hear dropped, and I'm a football fan. I played street football, but I never played organized. So there's a lot of things that I have to learn about, schemes and position definitions and things like that. So starting with defensive tackles, I always hear about three tech, five tech. What does that mean? What kind of guys play those roles, and how does that impact fantasy?
All right, so basically you have a zero through. I think that they even do like they call it a seven tech now, but it's mostly zero through
Oh boy.
six tech. I know. So your zero tech, it's pretty much your face to face with the center, like
Okay.
your defensive tackle straight on. Like think Vince Wilfork back in the day.
Gotcha.
You got your gigantic just
Yeah.
he takes on the center. He takes on as many blockers as he can just to open up gaps. That's
Mhm.
primarily his job. So he's not going to do much for you IDP wise, but
Right.
he's pivotal to your team. Unfortunately, that position's pretty much dead at this point.
Okay.
I mean, they don't really look for these gigantic defensive
Yeah.
linemen anymore. I think Aaron Donald has killed that mold because you now have
Very
these guys
true.
who are sub 300 pounds who are just
Mhm.
dominating interior offensive linemen. So
Mhm.
Aaron Donald, good job with that one.
Nice.
So then you move to your one technique. It's so when you have your all your odd number techniques, like
Okay.
your 1, 3, 5 tech, those are all on the outside shoulders of the respective offensive linemen. The even techs are on the inside shoulders. So
Okay.
your one tech, it's going to be lined up on the outside shoulder of the center. So figure
Oh,
like Grover Stewart.
okay.
You got your 4-3, you got Grover Stewart, and you got DeForest Buckner. Uh,
Mhm.
DeForest Buckner a lot of times will play a kind of a the two tech because he's going to be the
Mhm.
pass rusher of that 4-3.
Right. Okay.
So it's just lining up on the different shoulders of the interior lineman.
Gotcha.
Um, your three tech is going to be your defensive tackles on the outside shoulder, in between the guard and the tackle. So they're going to be shooting
Mhm.
that gap. That's Aaron Donald.
Okay.
So that's the one you want to shoot for. I mean, it's
Okay.
more of a, in a 3-4 base, but
Mhm.
if you have a three tech defensive tackle, that's the guy who's going to be shooting gaps. He's going to be rushing the passer.
Mhm.
That this is like Aaron Donald's position. He has made this
Mhm.
the desired defensive tackle. So your guys, Javon Hargrave, Aaron Donald, DeForest Buckner.
Ah,
At times, DeForest Buckner, he just goes all over the place
he's
on
kind of a tweener, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
he's great. But yeah, those bully power rush defensive tackles.
Okay.
Um, a guy who plays the one tech that's fantastic. I mentioned Grover Stewart, but think Christian
Yeah.
Wilkins, another
That's the
bigger,
guy I wanted to ask you about.
yeah,
Yep.
another bigger guy. He's still more of your gap filler, but
Okay.
he's also for a man his size a very good pass rusher. So
Mhm.
that and
Mhm.
if you can find a one tech who's going to get you 75, 80 tackles a year, and then
Yeah.
he's going to also add on 5, 6 sacks like Wilkins does,
Right.
that's ideal.
That
But
was absolutely a guy who popped into my brain because I was going to say, why does he get so many tackles? He provides you with that great floor, and then yeah, it just seems like anytime he gives you a sack, it's like just cherry on top right there.
yeah, so
So,
he just figure like so he's lining up in the outside shoulder of the center. So a lot
mhm,
of interior runs they go on the outside shoulders of the
mhm,
center, whichever side he goes. So
gotcha.
he's just filling those gaps and he doesn't miss a tackle.
And so that also has to bring up, there's obviously a talent discrepancy, right, between him
Yes.
and a lot of these other guys who, might be described as run stuffers, but there's just such a wide talent gap. Why so many of them are not fantasy relevant, just simply purely because of a talent gap. Would that be an
Right. Oh yeah.
accurate thing? Okay.
Oh, 100%. Like Christian Wilkins is kind of a freak of nature. Like
Right.
you don't see these guys playing this position usually rack up sacks. Like Grover Stewart,
Yeah.
he had himself, I think, 70 tackles last year, but I
Yeah.
think he had 3 sacks. And
Right.
that was easily a career high for him. So
For sure. For sure.
so then
Awesome.
you move down
Yeah.
the line, you get to like the 4 tech. That's
Okay.
like your 3-4 base defensive ends.
Okay.
So they're gonna line up on the defensive tackle's inside shoulder.
Mhm.
So a lot of times coaches want them to be face to face with the offensive tackle, but more often than not, it's going to be on the inside shoulder. Those are
Mhm.
guys like Zach Allen. Zach Allen's
Okay.
perfect in Denver. Zach Allen, Draymond
Yeah.
Jones, who's now in
Uh-huh.
Seattle. Those types of the 3-4 DNs, like that's those
Right.
guys.
Mhm.
Your 5 tech is just lining up on the outside shoulder of the defensive end. Your 5 tech's your hand in the dirt 4-3 defensive end.
Okay.
Nick Bosa. Just think Nick
Okay.
Bosa, what he does. And then when you get to the 6 tech, that's who's lining a lot of times on the outside shoulder of the tight end if it's on the tight end side, or if there's no tight end, then it's going to be like a yard and a half out
Mm.
wide from the tackle. So those are your stand up rushers. So those are the guys
Okay.
out wide. Those are your speed rushers. So like TJ Watt, guys like that.
Interesting. Okay. See, now that just is an explanation right there where I didn't realize that it broadens to those positions. I thought that was all the tech talk was all like defensive interior guys, but it spreads across the
It's the
entire
entire
defensive
defensive
line.
line.
I see. Okay.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So uh, what I'm seeing recently is since there's so many with especially everything going to true position,
Hmm.
I love getting those 6 tech, like those outside linebackers
Right.
as your
Okay.
ends, as your edge defenders because they're speed rushers. They number one, they come up with a lot of tackles. Anything that's going funneling outside, they're already so wide that they have to set the edge, right?
Hmm.
So guys like TJ Watt, they're coming up with 50, 60 tackles, but then they have the speed to make up the difference when they're pass rushing and they're coming up with 10, 12 sacks. So you have your high tackle floor, your high sack floor guys. And if you're getting an outside linebacker as an edge defender, that's key.
Yeah, absolutely. The dual designation, right? And
Right.
sleeper. We love
Yeah.
that in the best ball leagues. That's what I learned from you guys. Like load up on those dual designation guys. But it's also been very nice to see MFL. Shout out to Gary who
Oof, man,
got
he's
them
been
to
trying for
finally.
years.
I know, yes, some really selfless work there. We finally got like true position there, which is really nice. Yes, the guys you mentioned, that's like Draymond Jones, guys who were
Mhm.
like defensive ends and they flip flop back to defensive tackle. I think like Calais Campbell for many years, right? Was
Right.
kind of one of those tweener guys. So this is okay. This is just like putting a light bulb into my head right now. This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
awesome.
When I started reading into this stuff a lot more, I started doing it when I started doing more like rookie profiling. 'Cause
Uh-huh.
I've heard it all myself too. I was like, all right, so I got to figure out what all of these mean because these guys
Yeah.
keep saying he's going to be a perfect 3 tech. He's more of a 1 tech, and I'm like, I got
Right.
to figure it out if I'm going to keep like
Yeah.
researching these guys and figure out where they're actually going to go.
Right, right, where they're gonna fit.
Right.
2 guys I'd like to ask your opinion about from
Sure.
being a homer for my Eagles. So we've got, with the departure of Javon Hargrave, I feel like we're gonna see a lot more snaps from guys like Jordan Davis this year,
Hmm.
second-year player, and the rookie, Jalen Carter. How do you see them fitting into the Eagles scheme and for fantasy, purposes as well?
It's a huge rotation in
Yeah,
Philly.
very annoying.
That's the biggest problem. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
for fantasy. It's not a problem for
Right.
Philly at all. Like that defensive line's fantastic. They had an
Yeah.
unbelievable finish rate last year. Like
Yeah.
their sack finish rate was remarkable. They had 4.5 sacks a game, which was easily the most. They didn't even
Yeah.
have the most pressures in the league. I think they were third in the league in pressures, but they had by far the most sacks. So
Yeah.
their finish rate, it's because they have multiple pass rushers from the interior all the way to the edge, and they're always fresh, always fresh.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see a lot more of Jordan Davis and even some
Yeah.
Jalen Carter. I've seen some clips of him in preseason
Yeah.
and camp, and he's just
Just
a beast.
yeah, running
He's
people over.
Yeah, so I don't know, you might even see more Carter than Davis this year, but Fletcher
Interesting.
Cox he's gonna start to fade a little. I mean, he still played well last year, but he's
Right.
old. What is he,
Yeah.
33? 34?
Probably at least.
Something like that. So, I
Yeah.
mean, Hargrave gone, and you saw
Right.
what the Eagles did for Hargrave. I mean, but
Right.
his first season with the Eagles was just like he was with the Steelers. I
Hmm.
don't think he eclipsed 6.5 sacks, but then
Right.
his past 2 seasons, I think he had what, it was like 19 sacks in the past 2 seasons?
Right. Right.
It was
Yeah, that sounds
unreal.
right. Yeah.
So, yeah, like that what the Eagles have going on in that front line right now is just it's fantastic. The
Yeah.
only thing that sucks for fantasy purposes is the fact that they rotate so much.
Mhm. It's gonna be if you're not playing best ball, they're probably all gonna be very frustrating, right?
Mm,
For you're gonna have to roll with some 1 or 0 point games, but you're gonna also get, you know, those 10 point games. If Jordan Davis is soaking up, tackling all the runs up the middle, then that might be a solid game for him, but he might not be presented with those opportunities
right.
in the very next game. So yeah, it feels like they're going to be very frustrating. So,
Yeah.
does it feel like Jordan Davis is kind of that like um closer to a 1 or
Yeah,
a
I would say he's
2?
closer to a one tech because he's not
Okay.
really known for his pass rushing. As athletic
Right.
as he is, he's not really known for his pass rushing ability, which
Okay.
makes me feel like Carter will be used more because the Eagles, they
Right.
swap back and forth a lot between 3-4 base and 4-3 base. Like they switch back and forth all the time.
Right. Right.
So I think Carter's the most versatile of the two. So he
Yeah.
can play he can play a one tech if he wants to, but if they need him to move over and be with the
Yeah.
pass rushing D tackle, I mean that's totally fine with him. He can do that. Jordan
Okay.
Davis, on the other hand, I don't know if he can be a three tech. I think he's just pretty much a one tech, maybe a two tech, and that's it.
Gotcha. Does Jalen Carter possess the abilities to be or maybe transition even to more of like an edge guy, set hand in the dirt edge guy, or
I mean, he's athletic enough. I mean, he's an
yeah.
animal, but
I think I want that more to happen because I hate Derek Barnett so much. So I kind of am manifesting right now that I
I don't
want
think you
Jalen
have to
Carter.
worry about Barnett as much now that you drafted Nolan Smith. I know
Right,
he's been
that's
playing
true.
all over the field though, right? In camp, they had him playing off
Yes.
ball too.
Yes, they have. So I think that's why they took him because he's
Dude,
so versatile too.
yeah, well,
So
unbelievable. Like
kind of like
that defense is like
yeah,
you
sort of
think
an
about it,
embarrassment of riches right
holy
now.
cow.
Where everyone's
So
very versatile.
it's so many interchangeable pieces. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm
Which allows
excited.
them to move their scheme back and forth so much. It's like you're not restricted to one thing.
Yes, exactly. I'm definitely excited, but for IDP purposes, yes, it feels like it could be frustrating until things start to shake out, maybe after the first few games.
Just
Um,
go Reddick and Sweet.
yeah.
They both played
Oh,
over
I love that.
55%.
Yeah, they're the only true guys you can count
And
on
they were
right now.
legitimate, like, DN1s. Like,
Yeah,
you had 2 of them on the team. Like, it's tough to find a team with 2 legitimate DE1s. Like,
yeah.
they had 2 what was 48 tackles and 11 sacks for Sweet, and what was it, like, 50 something tackle or no, it was I think he dropped down to, like, 48, but he had, what, 16
Yeah.
and a half
It's
sacks?
yeah, 16 and a half. Yeah, yeah. I don't know what to think about that. It's tough to count on that being replicated, right? But hey, if anyone can do it, it'll be Reddick in that scheme.
Yeah, I mean,
As long as they don't screw up the scheme either with this new coach.
exactly,
So the new
exactly.
defensive coordinator.
I know. I know, I mean, Reddick he played the most. I think he played 74% of the team snaps last year, so it was like he was
Yeah,
almost always on the field, but
yeah.
their finish rate, man, as long as that's
It's
replicated, that's gonna be tough to replicate, though.
exactly.
It's so
That's why I'm
difficult,
like
but
cautiously optimistic this
so
year with
you have
with
a
the
plethora
changes.
of riches, right, on the edge. So, but Nolan
Yeah,
Smith, you have Reddick, you have Josh Sweet.
yeah.
I would be interested in seeing so the Cowboys ran this thing called the Big NASCAR
Mhm.
package. I've talked about it a couple times.
Ooh.
Their four-man front was 4 edge defenders. They didn't have a defensive tackle on there. They were all edge defenders. I mean, they were playing the inside positions, but it was
Right.
And it was interesting because they had, I think it was 5 players that played over 27% of snaps. So, I mean, even like Fowler played over 27. It was Fowler,
Oh,
Sam Williams, even these guys
right.
played. And then you had Dorrance Armstrong had like 47, and then you had DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons who were over 50. But
Wow.
they led the league in pressures.
Right.
What's interesting, it's like, all right, are we getting even farther away from these bigger defensive tackles? Are we just trying to put our
Yeah.
best pass rushers on the line?
And
It's
whoever makes the move and can get through
right.
eats, you know?
It's like
Yeah.
interesting. It was super interesting. I learned that from Tom Kay. Tom Kay's play
Oh,
handbook,
yeah.
his defensive handbook. I went through and just started reading some of that stuff, and I read that on the Cowboys. I was like, "Wow,
Yes.
that's interesting.
Yes. That, yeah,
That's super
I love
interesting."
that handbook. I tried diving in, but like I said, selfishly, I'm having you educate, hopefully, our listeners, but as well as myself, so I can dive in even further and fully understand that. If anybody's wondering what we're talking about, Tom Kislingberry on Twitter puts out an incredible sort of defensive handbook review of the past year, and breaks down alignments and snap counts and
It's
just
fantastic,
incredible insight into
and it's
the
free.
defenses of the schemes. He puts it out for free. I think it's pinned to his Twitter. I believe he's just at Tom or Kissinger or T Kissinger. You'll find him with that last name. But
Yeah,
one of my favorite people to follow on Twitter. Just incredible insight. And something he preaches, and now that you were just mentioned, that I want to touch on. So a lot of people listening might be familiar with your good old 4-3-3-4, right? And back in the day, I feel like it was they ran one defense one way, and that was it. And I feel like nowadays teams and coaches are becoming a lot smarter and adapting a lot more and sort of basing what they run out there on their personnel. So not maybe not trying to fit square pegs into round holes and just running the same exact base defense all the time. Um, so I'd like to sort of transition now into the linebackers. We touched on the edge rushers. That all makes sense to me now. The stand-up guys versus the hand in the dirt guys, 5, 6 techs and whatnot. But so the people that are used to, I mean, I feel like nobody plays three traditional linebackers anymore these days.
no,
We've got so the names that I know them by are Mike, Will, and Sam.
yep.
Would you be able to just drop your knowledge on us on those positions?
Don't even worry about the Sam. The Sam's dead. Sam's
Exactly.
a
Okay, I
gunner.
thought so.
So you had your Sam, he's your strong side linebacker. That's what the
Okay.
Sam is. So the Sam is pretty much just being replaced by either another edge defender
All right.
or they're
Okay.
bringing up a safety. And they're playing
Ah.
because most teams are playing a base nickel now. Like it's some sort of nickel or
Yes.
dime defense. I think it's somewhere upwards like 64% of teams are
Okay.
playing that as their base defense and their
Wow.
dominant defense. So you
Wow.
figure that you're just adding an extra DB, so you're bringing a safety up as opposed to having your third linebacker.
All right.
Which with the way the NFL is going, it's more pass happy. So you're pretty much just
Mm-hmm.
following trends. So
Yeah.
you don't need that guy who's trying to stuff the run on the strong side so many times over and over and over. You need that
Mm,
DB to come up to cover a tight end, to cover an extra wide receiver, or to cover a bunch set. And so your Sam,
kind of dead.
see you later. But
Yeah.
then you have your Mike. Your Mike is your middle linebacker. He's
Right.
generally the guy who's going to call your defense. He's the guy who's going to shoot gaps, stuff the
Okay.
run. He's a little bit in coverage, but your main guy for your playmaking is going to be your Will. He's going to be your guy covering tight ends. He's going to be your guy blitzing. He comes up. He's on the weak side, so
Mhm.
I predominantly like Will linebackers because I
Okay.
like big play guys. Because you
Mhm.
think so, Shaq Leonard when
Right.
he's
Okay.
healthy, unbelievable playmaker. Like he's still getting 150, 160 tackles, but
Right.
you look at what he does. He has like 3 interceptions per season, 5
Mhm.
forced fumbles. They're playmakers. They're not
Right.
like they're not nose in the dirt, shedding blocks. They're coming weak side and they're
Mhm.
making plays.
Okay.
So you have let's see, Shaq Leonard. I'm trying to think of some other great.
How about the top names? So guys like Roquan Smith. Which one does he fit in? Is he a Will?
I'm
Or
trying
is
to
he kind
like
of like a
so
hybrid? Like,
he's kind of like a hybrid. So he
yeah,
goes and he pass rushes himself when he was with Chicago.
right.
But the defense they play in Baltimore is kind of funky too because they have that extra pass rusher. I forget what they
Mhm.
call it, but they like Bowser plays it. He drops in coverage some
Oh,
from
right.
when he's from the edge. So it's kind of a strange. It's almost like he plays a Mike, but it's like
Okay.
a roaming Mike.
Okay. No, that helps. That makes sense. And
Um,
this is what makes it so challenging too, right? Is because there aren't, so many of us are used to these standard terms and we want to assign these players these terms, and sometimes it's just not applicable. You
right.
can't really. So this is very helpful.
And the other thing is too, it's like you have a lot of teams like even when they go into dime packages, you usually only have
Yeah.
one linebacker on. So then you have that. But then
Right.
once they switch back, when they drop back into like a nickel or their base 4-3, then they bring on another linebacker. And then
Mhm.
some of those guys who are your one linebacker, now their role changes and they'll shift over to the weak side instead of playing in the middle.
See?
And it's like, so
Uh-huh.
a lot of them don't have a predominant role. If
Yeah.
you're most of the weak side linebackers play weak side but they'll be the guys moving in if it drops to one linebacker because they can cover,
Right. Okay.
usually.
Right, usually.
But
And that's another talent gap thing, right?
right,
If they're talented enough, if they have the skill set to do it,
right,
that's what they're going to do. So
right,
another important thing. So yeah, I feel like watching almost as important as understanding at least like the general terms and schemes and things like that is just snap counts. Snap counts are king, right? If your guys are on the field,
yep,
they're going to make or have opportunities at least to make plays. And it's not so as important to assign them a label as a Will or a Mike or whatever it might be, right?
right. And that's where like I've actually started to change my draft strategy a little bit, and I've actually
Uh-huh.
preached a little bit this off season because everything's going to true position, right? So
Hmm.
it makes
Hopefully.
yeah, right. So it
We
makes
want it.
those like high end D linemen, like those defensive
Yeah.
ends, they're not that necessary to reach for anymore
Right.
because you have so many now. You have all the outside linebackers and defensive
Mhm.
ends are now edge players.
True,
So
true.
with teams going to base nickel, base dime, you're taking linebackers off the field. So you don't have that many linebackers now that are every down linebackers.
Mhm.
There's teams that only have one, right? Like
Right.
look at the Giants. Last year they
Yeah.
had Jalen Smith. So and it's probably going to be Bobby Okereke, but he's going to
Right.
play. He's going to be the only linebacker that probably has over 75% of snaps.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's like if that's I think finding those linebackers, like those elite linebackers,
Mhm.
it's almost better to get those guys and then wait a little bit and grab some edge defenders. Like you can look and you can grab Josh Sweet. He was
Mhm.
a DL1, 48
Right.
tackles and 11 sacks, and you can get him. I think he's going as the
Oh,
DL25.
yeah. That's
So
kind
it's
of
like
ridiculous.
if you can grab two linebackers before you even grab him, he can be your
Yeah.
DL1. Even if it's a low end DL1, you just grabbed yourself two elite linebackers who are still generally your highest scoring players.
Right. Okay.
It's like it's kind of to me is there's still a lot of people who preach grab those elite DNs, and I'm saying if you have the opportunity to get Nick Bosa or like Miles Garrett and not
Yeah.
have to reach for him, go
Right.
for it. But
Yes.
if you're going to be reaching, I'm not doing it because there's
Yeah.
so many edge defenders now.
Right. Now that makes a lot of sense. All right, so now can we blend the term? So I always hear the term, and this one I understand more, but for the people, how do those Mike Will and formerly Sam, that's not really a thing anymore, go and blend with the term off-ball linebacker? So what is an off-ball linebacker, and is there a counter part to an off-ball linebacker or no?
I don't know if I'd really say counterpart. So an off-ball linebacker would be your weak side. So your middle linebacker, he's pretty much on ball. So
Okay.
he's straight on the ball. Like he's right in the middle. Your weak
Mhm.
side's off ball. He's watching from the side. He's coming from the weak side. He's making plays off of the weak side.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's why your mics are generally your tackle guys, your run stuffers, your
Mhm.
gap fillers. Your weak sides are the guys that are coming off the edge, not so much the edge, but coming from the weak side and
Mhm.
they're making plays.
Right. Okay. No, that totally makes sense. Um, cool. So I'm trying to think if there's okay. Touching on quickly on a hot rookie. what is Will Anderson? Just what is he? If we are trying to assign a label to him,
So
what can we?
he's gonna be an edge.
Okay,
He'll be an edge. He's gonna be
just straight up
if
edge.
you've watched him that preseason game where he just blew up the
Yeah.
running
Oh,
back
I'm
in
excited.
Miami,
I'm
I
so
was like,
excited.
"That's
Here
what I
we
wanna
go.
see."
There's
I
a
don't want this
reason.
guy to bust. I don't want him
Yeah.
to bust so badly. He's so good. But again, he's kinda like Nolan Smith. I mean, Nolan Smith's great, no offense to him, but
Yeah.
Will Anderson is on a whole different level.
Oh, yeah.
But he
Yeah.
has that ability like Nolan Smith. He can play off ball if he wants to. He can shift
Mhm,
to, like, a weak side linebacker if you need to.
mhm.
Make him a blitzing off ball linebacker. 'Cause he what was it, his sophomore year, he had like 104 tackles.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Can we expect, a decent tackle floor for him to go along with these hopefully
Well,
shit ton of sacks?
I think so because mainly because of the fact he's gonna be in the backfield so much. So of his 200, what was it? He had 204, 240 tackles in college. 58 and a half were for a loss.
Dang.
So it's like even if he's not coming up with a sack, he's in the backfield and he's making a play in the backfield. So he's like 25% of his tackles were for a loss.
Wow,
And then
that's
he had added on like
insane.
35 sacks or something like that. But it's just the fact that he's in the backfield so quickly, it's
Yeah,
he's gonna come up with a tackle.
yeah.
It's unreal. He's so fast and he's so powerful.
Alright, so that helps my nerves a little bit, especially for redraft. I just
I
didn't
know
know what to expect.
he's a rookie, so it's like redraft, you're
I
like, "Do
know.
you do it? Do you
Right.
do it?" And then you watch him blow up a running back and you're like, "Oh, I gotta do it." I
Uh-huh.
have to do it in some league. I don't own him yet in the league. I haven't drafted him anywhere. He's not in any of my teams, and I'm like,
Oh, no. Well, that's because rookie fever, right? People are probably reaching
"Right,
for him and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's awesome to hear. So that whole Texans defense too is that so D'Amico Ryans brings over probably a more traditional 4-3 or like you were saying the nickel package.
right."
So if Will Anderson's going to be in one of those linebacker roles, who are you projecting to be that more middle traditional linebacker right now? Is it Christian Harris, Denzel Perryman, or I think Kirksey's still sort of in the
I
running?
think it's gonna be Perriman.
Okay,
He's looked like he's been in control of the defense, and he
okay,
actually had a really great preseason game last week.
nice.
Um, I think it's gonna be Perriman.
Okay,
Kirksey's okay, but he's more of a
mhm,
weak side, and I don't think they're gonna let him play over Christian Harris just because they need to
mhm.
see what they have in their youth. I mean, this isn't a
Right.
team they know they're not competing for a championship this year, so
Yeah,
it'd be fruitless for them to play Kirksey over Harris to see what they have, you know?
that makes a lot of sense. Now, see, that makes sense, but we've seen coaching not
Right.
make sense in the
Right.
NFL. So let's hope they go that route. So
Right. And
um,
that's my man, D'Amico Ryan, so I know he's a
I
smart
know.
guy.
We have to put faith in him, hopefully. Awesome. I think there's one more guy I'd like to ask you about, another rookie. Where do you see Drew Sanders' career going
Oh,
in
man.
Denver there? He's
It's
such a
so
hard
hard.
one to peg. He's got that dual designation in sleeper, which is interesting, I think. But yeah, I mean, I obviously we're not gonna hold you to these predictions, but just what are your off the gut thoughts of him
I
right
don't
now?
think he has a big rookie year. I honestly think
Right.
he'll just be a rotational pass rusher as a rookie year.
Okay.
That's where I think he's gonna fit in. Him and Nick Benito will be like the secondary guys coming off the
Interesting.
bench.
Okay.
Um, I would love to see him be the Alex Singleton replacement.
Right.
I don't think Singleton so as great as he was last year,
Mhm.
it was the only year he did it. Like everybody's
Yeah.
talking about how efficient of a tackler he was last season, and he was probably possibly the most efficient tackler in the
Yeah.
NFL last season. But every year prior to that, the 2 or 3 years prior to that, he was incredibly inefficient.
Yes.
I don't know if it's a scheme change or what that fit him well, but he didn't make it in the NFL until he was like 28 years old. He was an
Right.
inefficient tackler for the first 3 years, and then out of the blue, he's this
Yeah.
tackle machine. But he's already what, 31, 32 years old, and it's like they
Yeah.
didn't make a huge investment, and they gave him an extension, but I think they have an out within a year or 2, so it's like
Like most, yeah.
right. So my hopes are since they did give Drew Sanders some decent draft capital that he will
Right.
eventually be the replacement at middle linebacker next to Josie Jewell.
Yeah.
Or will
Okay.
he replace Josie Jewell? Who knows? Because I think Jewell
Right.
and Singleton's contracts are like the same time coming up. So it's like, well, who do we like more?
It feels like Sanders has this enormous ceiling though with his skill set, right?
Oh my
Like
gosh.
if he's going to be rotating in as more of an edge rusher for, almost like red shirting this year,
Right.
but then takes over, we assume he's got to take over one of them next year.
I
Like,
would hope
but like you
so.
said, between age and contracts and things like that, and steps in with this incredible opportunity to provide a tackle for with the ability to get to the quarterback. I mean, I might need to readjust my dynasty rankings.
Right. See,
This,
I know with Fangio's gone now, so he didn't never
yeah,
blitzes his linebackers.
okay,
He very rarely blitzes in general.
mm,
So I would love to see them use him as a middle linebacker, as an inside
uh,
linebacker, and blitz because that's
right.
where he makes his money. Like that's his bread and butter. Like he's just such a good pass rusher. And if he
Hmm.
can play inside linebacker and like you said, have that tackle floor, but also
Hmm.
give him a good percentage of blitz rate,
Yeah,
that would be
he,
key. But
it feels like he's got the toolbox to
oh,
just be
100%.
a superstar potentially for
Either that or
IDP purposes.
either that or they'll just move him to full-time edge like Micah Parsons.
Right, yeah. Which I feel like side tangent, I feel like Parsons is a bus, so not okay, a bus candidate for me for where he's being taken, which is often the very first IDP. So
Yeah.
explain. Here's my thought process on this. Right, first year it was amazing. Had I think he was in the 60s with tackles and the
Mhm.
13 and a half sacks. Right. Second year he moves. He's playing more on the line, edge, less linebacker. Loses 20 tackles, sacks remain the same.
Mhm.
Is it crazy to me to think he's going to stay with those, or potentially get even less tackles because he still was playing some linebacker last year. So even less tackles, and then you're completely at the mercy of his sack total, which I get it. He's an elite pressure guy, but we've seen Max Crosby have these like hiccups
Fluctuating,
where
yep.
pressures don't always mean, I mean, Carl Lawson, right? Now, Micah Parsons is supremely talented over Carl Lawson, but we've seen pressures not lead to sacks sometimes. So am I crazy to think that like I'm talking bus as the first IDP being taken? Am I crazy for thinking that?
No, no, actually, I haven't drafted Micah Parsons once this year. I'm kinda in the
Is he
same
going
boat.
as the first IDP?
He's going number 1, but, I'm kinda in the same boat. It's like, alright, everybody got excited over Micah Parsons because
Yeah,
he has this unbelievable tackle floor, and he's coming up with 13 sacks, and they're using him
yeah,
off-ball linebacker, they're using a pass rush, and it's like, no, he's
yeah,
an edge defender. That's what
yeah.
he is. I mean,
Fully
it's
transitioned.
literally do you want that or do you want Nick Bosa? Like him and
Right.
Nick Bosa will give you he's getting more sacks and he's coming up with the same amount of tackles. So it's like
Mhm.
you can
Miles Garrett is giving you
Myles
more
Garrett.
tackles and more sacks.
And if you really want to go that route, TJ Watt. I mean,
Yes.
I'm not a TJ Watt guy because I can't see him staying healthy.
Right.
He's getting
At
up
this
there and
point.
he's got
Mhm.
some freaking miles on him, but he's a legitimate top 5 edge defender. And
Right.
those guys are kind of interchangeable. It all depends on health and but I don't wanna draft as my number 1 pick a guy with 45 tackles and 13 sacks. It's not I mean, like
Right.
I said,
It's a bust.
Josh Sweet, he's the
Yeah.
DL25, he had 48 tackles and 11 sacks. It's like,
Two and a half less sacks. Like that's why I just don't get how people aren't seeing that. Like
it's because he's so talented, and
right.
there is the potential he has a blow up year like Reddick had last
Mhm.
year. The
Right.
problem is, it's the amount of edge rushers that they have.
Uh-huh.
So it's like it's that rotation that we've been talking
That
about, like, you have 5 guys over I mean, I think Parsons still himself had that was like 68% or 70%, so
mhm.
he's still the guy that's gonna be there, and that's not gonna change,
Yeah.
but he's also the guy who's getting the most attention.
Right.
So it's
That
like,
that was that was a really interesting point that you mentioned, like with playing, they were frequently playing all edge guys
it was
throughout the
crazy.
entire defensive
I
line.
had no idea, and I actually had to go back and watch some games, and
Yeah,
I mean,
that's wild.
it wasn't often, but there was still times, like, you saw it, and you were like,
Yeah. Is that
"Holy
happening?
crap."
Is that happening? Yeah.
And you got, like, nobody in on the line's got their hand in the dirt. They're kinda it's like,
Right.
"What is going on here? Is
That's
this
interesting.
legit?"
And I mean, we saw, I mean, they were a total defense, team defense.
Mhm. They led the league in pressures,
It works. Yeah. See, it worked. Like, so maybe we see that becoming a trend. That's an interesting trend to point out.
and I think they
Which
played a lot of dime too, which was always three
Yeah,
safeties.
right. They're one of the biggest teams where their second linebacker is
Mhm.
pretty much useless. I see people this is what's funny too. People are constantly worrying about who's going to win that secondary role, but like honestly, who cares? Like
I
just
just wanna
pick
know who wins the number 1 role. Is it gonna be Van Der Esch or is
right.
it Ron Clark? Because
Is he
that's
gonna?
the guy you
Yeah,
want.
is Van Der Esch going to hang on to it or not? It feels like they're going to let him at least try. But yes, it's another guy who very early on, if he's not performing, he could be short leash right there. But
Or if he just
yeah,
gets
for
injured again.
you're right, that too. But yeah, for all the people clamoring over, some of these systems, who cares who's the linebacker to?
Right.
Just pick if you absolutely want to take a shot on the guy you like the most, but just be quick to cut and replace and just
Right.
watch the snap counts and move on.
Because it's not really exciting to have a guy
Yeah,
who's playing 70% of snaps.
right. Were people rushing out to start not only pick up but start like Anthony Barr last year?
Oh my
No, they
gosh.
weren't.
Right.
Like,
Right.
and so yeah, I think people get a little too crazy. I know people are in very deep leagues and they need them and things like that, but I just don't get all the need to nail down. Like, just take whoever you think it's going to be, and if you miss, who cares?
Yeah. There's gonna be replacements. Somebody's gonna get injured along the way. Just watch the Browns. They'll go
Yeah,
through, like,
oh,
17 linebackers this
dude.
year probably.
Poor Jacob Phillips, man. I've been hanging on to him and putting him on IR every year. Like
Uh,
that guy can't catch a break, man.
Bicep
Uh,
again, right?
yeah, the same freaking.
Poor
It's
guy.
crazy.
That just keeps
Uh,
Anthony Walker alive.
yeah,
And JOK for that.
I know,
They
I
better
know.
play him this year.
Yeah,
Don't get me started on that one.
I know. Maybe we could get when we're gonna flip the corners before we get to safeties, a much more interesting position. But I like to touch on corners just quickly as far as your insights into, our slot corners, the guys you want are, a lot of the right. You're shaking your head. Yes, that makes sense. We often talk about like kind of like fading almost the team's number one corner because they're often the best coverage guys, so they might not get targeted as much. And maybe going for the secondary guy and the slot guy. Is that sort of a philosophy that makes sense to you?
So honestly, this one kind of depends on scoring because
Okay.
if you're playing in those leagues where they're scoring passes defended for like 3 points, 4 points, those CB1s, the
The
cornerback, the top,
team, yeah.
yeah, the team CB1, those guys
Yeah.
are still good because they'll come up
Okay.
with 14, 15 passes defended on the year and they'll give
True.
you 40, 50 tackles. Like some of these guys,
Right.
people get worried because they don't get targeted often, but most of those guys are so good they don't miss a tackle. So if they do give up a
Right.
reception, they're going to come down with a tackle. So a
Mhm.
40 to 50 tackle floor, and if they're getting their hand on the ball, if they're coming up with 14, 15 passes defended, that's okay.
Okay.
But primarily, you want your slot corners. So,
Right.
like I said, teams are playing a lot of base nickel, base dime,
Yes.
and sometimes instead of bringing up a safety, they're using their slot corner and run defense. We saw it with L'Jarius Sneed last year. Sneed was
Right.
probably the most efficient tackling cornerback in God knows how long. Man, the
Yeah,
guy
a
was a
long time.
monster last year. But
Yeah.
then we also saw it flip flop towards the end of the season in Kansas City when they moved Trent McDuffie up to slot corner. They moved Snead
Right.
back to free safety. You saw Snead's numbers drop, and all of a sudden McDuffie was becoming relevant.
Uh-huh.
You see that slot corner that people are like when Eberflus when he was with the Colts,
Okay.
he had
Right.
Kenny Moore
Can't anymore,
blitzing
yeah.
like crazy.
Yeah.
So you have these slot corners. Like if you have a slot corner who can blitz, who's an
Uh-huh.
efficient tackler, and who can cover a tight end, you're looking like 75 to 90 tackle floor, and then you have the
Mhm.
blitzing potential, and these guys are still coming up with 10, 11, 12 passes defended. So that's where you want to go is that slot corner.
Fantasy gold mine potentially there, right? So
Definitely.
yeah, that's easy enough. And corners are it's always so volatile because it's so matchup dependent, right?
Right.
Like if Jamar Chase, when you play the Bengals, your slot corner, Tyler Boyd, unless you have a bad slot corner, he's probably not seeing 10 targets in a game.
Right.
So
Yeah, because you got Jason
it's
Higgins on the outside. So they're like, yeah,
yeah,
he's all
there's
right.
your target. So
Yeah.
those would be the good weeks to play your more traditional corners. So yes,
Right.
as much as we're saying that, I think definitely paying attention to the matchups and things like that.
Follow
You
Johnny the
know,
Greek.
yes, he does the corner write up every week. It's amazing. He'll tell you who to stream
Yep.
because that's what you should be doing. Very rarely do corners give you the consistency to bother not streaming,
Right.
basically, right?
Right.
And also just the red flag we often for fantasy see that the number one corner does not repeat every year. So people just look back.
It's
You said about Kenny
virtually
Moore. Now
never.
it's yes. I think he had put together like 2 good years in a row, but like not
Then
as
Eberflus left,
right. So there you go. Scheme and coaching makes a lot of difference with those
which then
guys.
makes you
So
look Kyler Gordon in Chicago now.
yeah.
He's their slot corner. Is he going to start running that role? So it's like
And he already had a very decent
he
year
did. He had a great
last
rookie
year.
year.
A
So
very
he's kind of
under the
got me
radar
chomping at the
guy.
bit as a like an under the radar corner.
Yeah. So there we go. Everyone's favorite, Big Nate Hobbs. I
Yeah.
think he's a favorite of a lot of people, and I believe, is a slot corner for the
Yep.
most
There
part,
was
right?
talk
Yeah.
he was going to become a safety this year, but
Oh wow.
but he's sticking to slot corner.
Okay.
They were talking about
Okay.
they were talking about safety, then there was talking about moving outside, but then they just signed Marcus Peters, so now I
Right.
think he's definite slot. So
Okay. Good. So he's still a good guy to target then
yep,
this year for cheap or
especially
free.
with a really bad linebacking group.
Yeah, definitely.
No offense to Splinter Diablo,
Right. We like
they're
that for fantasy purposes, but for
right.
real football, they're shaky.
The Raiders,
I know.
they're
Oh
shooting for
boy.
Caleb Williams.
It sounds like it's them, Arizona, and the Rams that are probably going to be
Oh
the top
man,
contenders for Caleb next year.
but
So
you know what? The fact that
yeah.
it's Arizona and the Rams, I'm okay with it being in the
Oh
NFC
yeah.
West. Like, all right, you guys
Yeah.
suck. Sweet.
But now you got Caleb Williams for your next decade
That's
potentially.
true. That is true.
So
We
it's
got to make sure that Brock Purdy holds up.
yin and yang. Yeah, maybe you'll actually get something for Lance if you're
Oh
able to
man,
trade
I
him
can feel
away.
bad for him. I do,
I
but I
do
mean, he
too.
looked pretty good in the last preseason game. But
Yeah.
I,
If he
I,
kind of
I the worst part is he got injured, and I feel like with him
yeah.
being injured, I think the coaching staff just kind of like I don't know, they lost faith almost. It's like we need
It
to
took
move
their
on. We're in
attention
win now.
away.
We need a guy
Mhm,
now. And then Purdy kind of showed up and was just like he ran that offense to a T.
mhm.
And I don't think Purdy's probably talent wise not a top 20 quarterback in the league,
Right.
but he's smart.
Right.
And Shanahan runs a pretty complex offense. And if you can't run the offense, it's not going to succeed. But he ran the offense to a T and he's got
Mhm,
accuracy. So as long as you have accuracy and you can run the defense and you don't turn the ball over,
mhm.
I mean, we saw with Garoppolo when he played, even Nick Mullins to a point.
Yeah, could be serviceable in
Right.
that system. It's
So,
wild. You literally could just plug anybody in there.
right.
Oh
So
man.
as long as if you're an intelligent quarterback,
Right.
that's what made me worry about Trey Lance. It's like he didn't have any reps. Like even in
Yeah.
college, he barely had any reps, and he was coming from a small school, an FCS school.
Right.
So it's like, is that really the guy you guys want to spend 3 first-round picks on?
It kind of feels like a Trubisky situation in the sense that he can't control that a team moved up and paid all those assets for him when
Right.
we don't know for sure if anybody else was actually going to take him that high or if they
Right.
were kind of just playing possum over
And what
there.
bothers me is we could have stayed put and drafted Fields
Right. Yeah.
and not give
Yeah.
up 3 first-rounders for Trey Lance.
Hey, you're still doing all right.
Yeah.
So that can
Tangent over.
transition us into into safeties. So this is a fun one. Safeties are always really fun to try to figure out. So I'll take it back to what I know as the term strong safety, free safety. But as I understand from guys like yourself and Big Tom, that those designations are also kind of going the way of the Sam, where they don't fit necessarily these days as much anymore. So love to hear your thoughts on that.
So the thing that worries me a lot right now is a lot of teams are switching to a cover 2, which
Okay.
means you have pretty much 2 deep safeties.
Oh, okay.
So it's like you saw it with the Bills last year. They did it. They switched to a cover 2, and you saw Poyer's production. It
Right.
tanked. I mean,
Yes,
he
that's
was
very
still
true.
coming up with the big plays, but his tackle numbers dipped heavy.
That is
So
accurate. Yeah.
the cover two kind of kills those guys that you had as your box safeties, your strong safeties, because you don't really have a strong or a free safety anymore. You just have two deep safeties. And it's
Yeah.
because
Okay.
everybody's afraid of getting beat over the top.
Yeah. All
So
the
that
speed in the league.
right. So they're switching to a nickel and dime. So you have your extra
Huh.
DB, your slot who can play underneath,
Uh-huh.
and then you have your two deep safeties, so you're not going to beat over top.
Interesting.
So that's the
Okay.
thing that worries me so much because you're seeing it a lot more now, a lot of
Yeah.
cover too. So what you really want to do is find those teams that are playing multiple safeties and find who they're putting up in the box, like the
Okay.
Cowboys, Donovan Wilson.
Right. Okay.
So leave Malik Hooker alone. And well, you know, I'm not even sure if it's Curse or Wilson that's going to be playing up in the box more, but
Yeah.
they both play that role well. I mean,
Yeah. It
I don't.
feels like they probably flip flop or
Yeah.
something.
So leave Malik Hooker alone. He's going to be deep no matter what.
Okay.
But I don't think
Okay.
they play a cover two. But I mean, you want to find that guy on that team that's going to be predominantly in the box because that's one of the
Right.
setups. Like the dime is pretty much you're just taking away a linebacker and giving it a safety, and your safety is your
Mhm.
linebacker. It's just pretty much saying, I want my
Okay.
linebacker to have more range.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah, and they need better athletes
Right.
probably out there and quicker guys to match up with this speed. So,
And that's why you're
um,
seeing linebackers drop to like when you see a 225 linebacker now, people are like, I don't care.
mhm.
That's fine. Like
Yeah,
back in the day,
right,
you're like, you look at 200, they have to be 240 pounds or more, or you're not
right,
a good linebacker. But now it's like that guy can cover. I'm taking him. As
right.
long as he
Yeah,
can
who
cover,
cares?
I got him.
We don't need linebackers to be 260 anymore. Like,
Right. The only
maybe
pro
one of them,
the
but
only problem is then you got to make sure they have the strength to shed. Well, now this is
uh,
the issue with JOK. So
yes,
he's got
okay,
he's got speed and range for days, but he's
right.
having issues with his strength and he's having issues staying healthy because of his size.
Uh-huh.
So some people can hold up, some can't. Hopefully
Interesting.
he worked on his strength and training in the offseason because
Yeah.
that's what the linebackers coach said. He says he's got all the
Okay.
tools. We just need him to. I've challenged him to focus on his strength training.
Okay. That he feels like a guy. What to me, he seems like the reverse Jeremy Chin almost, where Chin was designated almost like a safety in the league and is now playing linebacker. Where it feels like JOK feels like a similar guy, body type, size,
Yep.
and everything, but he's the reverse. He came in as a linebacker, and I feel like there should be opportunity to transition him or get him more playing safety. Why?
Well, he played a
What?
lot of
Why aren't they
safety in
doing that?
college.
Yeah. So why aren't the Browns doing that with him? Is it just bad coaching there? Bad
I don't
square
think so
peg
because
round
I mean
hole? Like
they have good coaching, but I think so. He's also a very good pass rusher. Like
okay.
he's a pretty powerful pass rusher. So I think they want to keep him as close to the line as possible. But
Okay.
honestly, if they really wanted to, if they wanted to go that route, switch the defense up a little bit, maybe play a little more dime, and have him be your free range safety.
hmm
That
hmm
wouldn't be a bad idea because he can cover and he's quick. He's sideline to sideline. No, like he's athletic as heck.
Right.
And then you can use him to blitz if you want to.
Yes, exactly. Like it
So
just feels like the experiment at linebacker has not been going so well.
right,
So like,
I feel like some of these guys who you see struggling with roles, it's
uh-huh.
almost like you want to see these teams be like, you know what, just be that guy that's just gonna go after the ball. Like, let's not
Yeah.
give you a role.
Attack.
Let's make you a positionless player. Like
Yeah.
we have 10 players who are gonna play a role, and you just roam almost like a spy.
Right. I was talking with our Grant was on here earlier before the show started. He's a Browns fan. We were talking about this exact scenario, why that's probably hurts JOK for IDP, right? If they're playing a Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson, he's playing the spy, but he's not converting anything to stats wise, he's gonna suck for IDP,
Yeah, it's
right?
pretty much just contain.
Yeah. So that stinks for IDP
Right.
purposes. So yeah, he's an interesting case. Another guy I wanted to touch on who's doing this. So the Cardinals, right? I'm hearing preseason that Jalen Thompson was getting snap opportunity or slot opportunities,
Mhm.
and then Baker with Simmons as
Right.
your safeties. I don't know at
And
what
Simmons was
level.
playing deep.
Yes. So I'm petrified for his IDP value if that's going to be the case this year.
Right. So I think it's Simmons. He's too good of a playmaker to keep as your free safety. And I honestly
Okay.
don't think he's
Right.
that good of a cover guy. I think Buda's
Yeah.
actually better.
Okay.
And Buddha's played free safety. Buddha played free safety last year, and he still was. Wait, I think he still eclipsed the 100 tackle mark, and
Yeah.
his coverage has been phenomenal the past few years.
Yeah.
I mean, his what 140 tackle year, he was
Right.
predominantly a box safety. Like that's what he
Right.
was doing. And then once Jalen Thompson came in, he kind of moved up and he was the box guy, and they moved Buddha back into the free safety spot. He was the last, but he was still coming up with tackles mainly because their linebacker group was poo.
Right. Right. Exactly.
But I don't I feel like it's a waste of Simmons to put him as a deep safety. Yes,
Yeah.
he's good in your last line of defense. He's a huge defender that you can have back there. Like that's somebody you can't go over the top of. He can
Right.
probably undercut, but he's a very good pass rusher. He's athletic. I feel like he needs to be more in the slot. He needs to be more in the box. He needs to be up there making plays, blitzing, covering tight ends because he's got the size. So I feel like
Right.
it's
Okay.
almost a waste throwing him in free safety.
So he's another guy. Like, what the hell do you do with him then?
Don't ever draft him to play linebacker. Don't draft him as one of your linebackers. If
Yeah.
you do, he's your linebacker 5 or 6. If you
Right.
can get him as a DB,
At
I'd
least
be
there's some
willing to
upside
take a
there.
flyer as a DB1 just because of what his numbers were last year. I do worry
Okay.
about his alignment this year, but at the same time,
Hmm.
he's a good enough playmaker to where if I can get him as my DB2, I'm
Hmm.
pumped. I'm actually pretty
Right.
based off of potential alone,
Right.
but
Okay.
I'm not gonna go out and be like, "It's Isaiah Simmons. He's got a high tackle floor because he's a linebacker." No,
Mm.
he's not a linebacker anymore, man. He's a safety,
Right.
strictly safety. He doesn't have that tackle floor. He's a
Yeah.
strictly safety.
So useless as a linebacker, pretty much
Yeah. Oh,
for
yeah.
fantasy purposes.
It's only if you have an
Um,
injury.
yeah, yeah, right. Then he might be forced to move in there. And so we've got a whole new coaching change there. So it's so murky. And I think the advice we like to give when you've got murky situations like that is take the cheapest option. Like,
Mhm.
don't reach for these
Guys your
guys just
way.
because you liked him coming out of college. You know what I mean? Don't hang on to that. If let someone else be his problem. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So Kaiser White is the value this year at the
Unreal. Who would have
green
thought,
dot middle
honestly?
linebacker.
Like, I saw them take him. I saw them sign him, and I was like, "It's decent." Next
Look,
thing you know,
yeah,
Simmons is moving to DB.
right.
David Collins is moving to edge. I'm like, "So it's
Uh,
White." It's literally
yeah,
it's White, and who else? Joe
yeah.
Woods
I think Chris Barnes is there, and then
and Owen Pappoe,
the rookie, yeah, Popo, yeah.
which I'd be
So,
pretty excited to see him in
well,
there. That'd be
yeah,
cool.
either one could be decent,
I mean,
but you're
Barnes
not
is a
counting
tack
on
he's
them.
a tackle
Yeah,
monster when he plays, but I just don't think
right.
he's great in anything else.
Liability elsewhere, probably,
But, I mean,
right?
you
So,
have 3 good DBs, so you only need a guy to
right,
play 60, 70%.
right. Speaking of Zaven, is he going to be hand in the dirt or is he going to be stand up
I think
TJ
he'll be a
Watt, Hassan
stand-up.
Reddick?
I
Okay.
think he'll because he's too good in coverage. Because he's a good coverage linebacker too. Like, he's gonna be a guy
Yeah.
who's gonna mask the defense a little bit. He's gonna be the guy
Okay.
he's gonna drop. I think he'll drop a lot, and they'll blitz from the weak
Okay.
side
Okay.
or opposite side, whatever side he's not on. I could
Oh,
see that
interesting.
happening a lot. Maybe
Okay.
that's where you bring in Simmons in the blitz. You
Ah,
you allow
interesting.
you allow him to drop a little and then bring Simmons opposite side.
Ooh, okay. So
And I'm
we
just
got it.
spitballing, I just thought about that just now because when I was talking about Simmons blitzing, but
Yeah.
that would be a good way to utilize what you have on that defense.
So maybe some sack ceiling for Simmons. Maybe a lower tackle for, but possibly some sack ceiling
Yeah.
there if they're as smart as you are
But
and
the
make
thing
that
is,
same determination.
if you look at Gannon when he was in Philly, how
Yeah.
often did their safeties blitz?
Like, never.
Yeah. So it's like
So,
but he also has
okay.
nowhere near the pass rush rotation he had in Philly. Like,
Right.
not even close.
Exactly, that
Like, their
talent
best
gap.
guy's probably Philly's 4th best.
Right, right, right. Interesting. Oh, man.
So,
Alright,
yeah,
well,
Arizona's a conundrum.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is there any other teams that you wanna touch on with any just murky waters at any levels there of the
Oh, the
defense?
Rams are horrible.
Oh god, yes. Oh, that's gonna be
I
so
mean, you have
terrible.
Aaron Donald,
Right.
awesome. Ernest Jones, awesome, just
Probably
because
gonna be awesome,
yeah.
yeah.
And then I originally had Jordan Fuller, awesome, just because he's coming back healthy and
Yeah.
they had nobody else, but then they just went and signed John Johnson.
They brought him back.
And
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
back last time they
Murky.
played together, John Johnson made Fuller said, "Just
It,
calm down, buddy. You're good, but
yeah.
calm down."
You could play left field, right?
Right. So I don't know. So I was all in on Fuller, and then all of a sudden they signed John Johnson. I was like, "Yeah."
So
But
that's
other than that,
another
there's literally nobody.
right. That's another
So
one
what
where like people are trying to figure out the LB2, but it's like, who cares?
don't worry
If it's
about it.
Roseboom, if it's Byron Young, the rookie, like it doesn't
Ugh.
matter. I
Ugh.
do kind of like the he came on last year, big Mike
Nickel
Hoke
Hoek,
or
Hoke,
Hoek,
yeah.
however you say it. But I kind
Yeah,
because
man.
he's basically still free. I mean, you've
Well,
got sharp guys that listen to us that know about him,
he
but
was, what, his last 8 games, he had, like, 33
yeah,
tackles and 5 sacks. It's
yeah,
like, at
he
over
ended the
300
year.
pounds. He's over 300 pounds playing off the edge. It's
That's
like,
wild.
I was like, "Is
He
that
ended
really
the
a
year
thing?" He played
on
great.
fire.
He
He was
played
on
great.
fire last year, so
And then you know
he's
what,
kind of
though?
the only other one.
It's the Aaron Donald effect, man. Aaron
Yeah.
he did it for Fowler. He did it for
Uh-huh.
Leonard he resurrected Leonard Floyd's career. It's
He's
like,
owed so much money from a few of these guys.
people can say all they want. Aaron Donald is the best defender in the league, and
Yeah.
people need to stop comparing him. Even if his numbers aren't there, he makes everybody else in that line better. It's
It's wild.
unbelievable.
I know. He made Greg Gaines was a serviceable guy for a handful of weeks a
Like,
couple
"Here you go,
years ago.
Greg.
Like,
I'm gonna take all 3 of these guys. You can just
yeah. And free
go home
reign. Hey,
free."
it's wild. All
Yeah.
right. The last one I'm going to ask you about, unless you want to bring any others up afterwards, is the Buffalo Bills linebacker too. I got to have your take on this. What do we see, and do we care?
Oh, we do care, yeah. I do
Okay.
because the Bills ran the most simplistic defense in the NFL last year. So they
Okay.
ran a base 4-3 with nickel
Mhm.
for I think it was like it ended up being 84% of the time it was the
Oof,
exact same look.
damn.
Like they were the most simplistic defense and it was one of the best defenses in the
And it
league.
worked. Yeah.
So it's like it was simple. So that the linebackers both played, it was like 90% or more of the snaps. So when healthy.
Yeah.
So Milano, he's going to remain the weak side linebacker. He's not moving inside. He's not all of a sudden going to accumulate these crazy tackles just because Edmonds is gone. He's not Milano. He was I was researching when I was trying to figure out guys you should trade, and I said you should trade away Milano. And
Okay.
when he of all the guys who played over, it was like over 500 snaps last year
Mhm.
at inside linebacker. Milano
Yeah.
had the worst missed tackle rate.
Ooh,
It
really?
was
Did not know that.
16.5%. So he's not gonna move to the middle linebacker position. He's
Okay.
probably not gonna be your green dot guy. I doubt he will. It's probably gonna be
Right.
Poyer, if anything.
Oh, okay.
But
There's see, that's something I haven't heard yet.
so Milano's gonna stay as your will, and then
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be Tyrell Dodson because
Okay.
he's looked good this offseason. The other two, Terrell Bernard, he's looked all right, but
Right.
Dodson has already showed up in that defense. He played
Yeah.
well when he was on the field. So he's
Mhm.
already proven that he can do it. So I think they'll give
Mhm.
him the first shot.
Okay.
And he's super cheap. I think I did
Mhm.
an article on value picks, and I think Dodson was going as like, I want to say it was like LB 100 or something like
Yeah,
that,
that sounds
109.
about right.
And it's
Yeah.
like, you can literally make this guy your last pick, and you can have a potential 125, 130 tackle guy. It's like,
Huh, that's amazing.
yeah. So whoever wins that job, yeah, take him because they're going to be one
Okay.
super cheap, and they're going to play volume.
They are still gonna be productive, right?
Yep.
I think the Tremaine Edmonds, right? He's kind of got this stigma as being a bit of a disappointment over the years. I think maybe the ceiling was just set too high. I mean, he's
Yeah.
been productive.
He's been
It's just
good.
people wanted him to be this superstar and IDP monster, and he's just never turned into that. I'm
Yeah.
actually way higher on him in Chicago now than versus being in Buffalo because my thought process was that entire Bills defense overall was so good that it just didn't present him with as many of those opportunities to give you splash plays and the 160 combined tackles that we want to get out of him. So
Right.
that's kind of where I'm at on him. I actually really like him in Chicago
Well,
this year.
plus you got to consider the coach there too is
Yeah,
Eberflus. I mean,
right,
Eberflus he ran out guys Zaire Franklin and Bobby Oker. Oh no, that was last year. It was Bobby Okereke and Shaq Leonard.
right.
And like
Okay.
he had those two guys, and they were both 130, 140
Yeah,
tackle guys, and it's like
monsters.
okay, and they have probably one of the worst defensive lines. So there's got to be
Exactly.
a lot funneling to the second level.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
big on Edmonds, and people
Yeah.
he gets so much disrespect. He's young still.
Right.
He's still
He's
what
still
25,
so young. It's
24.
ridiculous. Yeah.
He's so young, and if you look at him last year, he was literally probably the best coverage linebacker. If you look at his
Mhm.
PFF grade, I think he was the top coverage linebacker last year. So
Mhm.
it's like you have a man that size, that athletic, being able to cover. Shit.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think the ceiling is there for him this year.
Yeah.
I'm going to go make a dynasty trade. I think for him in this one league, I need a linebacker, so I'm going to try to.
You
Well, what
should
would it take to give up? So if I can sell some hype maybe on Terrell Bernard and convince her, what would it take to get a Tremaine Edmonds? What would I have to add
with
to a
Bernard.
Terrell Bernard? Probably a lot, right?
Yeah, you'd probably still have to sell at least a third and hope that he's
Yeah.
still biting on the fact that he might win the job.
Right. Okay.
Because I mean, nobody's
I'll
going
have
to
to
give up a
play with it.
first. Obviously, nobody wants to give up a first
Right.
for Edmonds, and you shouldn't. And
Yeah.
even a second, but like Bernard's kind of like on that level. It's like people
He
are either
could.
they're either like, all right, you know what, he's going to win the job, so yeah, I'm getting a guy in a second. So really, what you're doing
Yeah.
is you're taking Bernard, and you're like, I don't really care about him. It's just whatever I give up, I don't want to give up too much. So even if you took Bernard and you gave a second, it's pretty
Yeah.
much you're just washing Bernard away. You're getting Edmonds for a
It's
second.
basically just the second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
So just
All
kind of
right.
use him as the sweetener.
Yeah.
Make it
Gotcha.
make
Gotcha.
the trade if you want to add a pick in there or somebody else. Give Jeremy Chin, sell
Yeah.
Chin.
Okay. All
Have you
right.
seen his
Um,
alignment this preseason?
I refresh me because he's not playing the box like we
He's
expected
not
to,
he's
right?
not even seeing the field.
Oh gosh.
Because
Okay.
They brought in Von Bell. It's been Von Bell and Xavier
Right.
Woods have been playing with first team, and Jeremy
Really.
Chin's been sprinkled in.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Now is that preseason preservation
I
or
don't know. Like, we need to see how, like, the final preseason game goes,
yeah,
but it's
big week.
2
Yeah.
weeks in a row of him
Interesting.
sprinkled in with the first team, and it's been Woods and Bell. It's like,
Hmm. And Woods is just a guy that is so unfun to roster and start. Like, I just don't want any of him.
I
Von
know.
Bell, sure, we know what he can do, but yeah, that's going to be another. And that's a fun one to talk about quickly. Sorry, we keep
No,
going
yeah.
off tangents, but I love this. They're projecting to swap systems, right? They're going more 3-4. So we're going to see guys like Brian Burns, Gross Matos,
Yep.
standing up
Standing up.
potentially in
Which
that
I
more
think's
okay, like
perfect for
6.
Brian Burns.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that fits his skill set
it
perfect. I mean, he's a
helps
speed
him, right?
rusher anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm loving that for Burns. And who they just signed? They just signed another edge rusher. I
Oh,
totally
they
forget who
brought
it.
in Justin Houston, the old
Yeah.
Michigan. Yeah, it might be even someone else now.
So that'd be nice.
But
That's perfect for Burns. Like, all right, you're already
yeah,
at an elite level, but now you get to learn
mhm,
from Justin Houston too. And that dude's
yeah.
he's got to be a wealth of knowledge because even in his
Oh,
age,
for
he's still a good
sure.
pass rusher.
Yeah, we saw him last year. He had that like 4 or 5 games in a
Dude, he's
row. He was just on
crazy.
fire, and
He's
then he
crazy.
totally died, which is why we
Right.
preach snap counts.
Right.
But
But yeah, I
yeah.
mean,
So yeah, with them flipping that whole system, this is you're right. That could be a major red flag for it. But it's like they got to get him on the field just from talent perspective. Like
unless we missed something. Like, are we missing something because we fell in love
slot
with his
corner,
IDP numbers?
yeah,
Because
but
that's happened. That's happened
yeah,
before. So one guy I want to talk about real quick that
yeah.
I'm worried about because people are overdrafting him so high is Jalen Petre.
Oh, okay. Oh,
So
that's my guy.
I know and don't get me wrong, that rookie season was absolutely phenomenal. But a 20% missed tackle rate's not good.
Oof, I
It's
know.
not good. he had more missed tackles than he did assisted tackles.
La, 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 la. I
So
don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear
so
it. No, I know.
what he did do was he was fantastic in coverage, right?
Okay.
So here's D'Amico Ryans. He comes in. He brings in
Mhm.
Jimmy Ward, a guy he
Yeah.
already has trust in, a guy who
Right.
has a career missed tackle rate of like 4.8%.
Oh, wow.
I wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy Ward's going to be the guy who's going to be playing up more towards the box, maybe in the slot a little, but he's going to be the guy who's more towards the line, and Petrie is going to use his coverage skills on the back end. I don't know that. This is
Interesting.
just me being worried about drafting Petrie where
Right.
he's being drafted.
And that's the point, right? Is that he set such a high bar last year that he's going to be the DB1 or
Right.
2 taken. People are going to reach because he was so well and he's
So
young.
the
People
defense
love
got
their
better.
youth.
The
Mhm.
defense got better. They added more talent in front of him. They added a new coach who brought in players he likes and trusts
Uh-huh.
already, and he's probably gonna tell Jalen, he's like, "I love you. You're great, but if you
Right.
don't clean that up, I'm gonna put
Yeah.
you where you work best."
Right. Okay. Yeah, which could be
Which
not good for
if he
IDP.
goes deep, then you're looking at
Right.
a low end DB1, high end DB2 that's being drafted with the Derwin James of the world.
Right. As the DB1
Right.
slash the DB2.
Everybody's chomping at the bit for another 140 tackle season, which even if his
Right.
role doesn't change, that probably doesn't happen still.
Right. I know
Because, I
that
mean, you
it's
bring
so
in Denzel
ridiculous.
Perryman, Will Anderson. I mean,
Stealing. Yeah.
they brought in guys that are gonna affect that tackle floor.
Yeah.
That's high ceiling. Like, for
Right.
any safety, 140 tackles is an
Yeah.
unbelievable ceiling,
It's
so
like unheard of.
right. It's happened, what, like, him and Buda Baker, I feel like, are the only ones that have done it.
Yeah, in quite some time.
So it's like, alright.
No, that's a good piece of caution, you know. Same similar to the CB1. The safety one is new almost every single year. I mean, look at PG came out of nowhere. So
Right.
yeah, that's
If Derwin
that's
James could just stay healthy,
right. Then he's the locked in.
fucking jerk.
I know. I know. He's a frustrating one. But last year, did he miss time last
No,
year?
last
He
year he
still
was good, and
he made it. Okay.
he finished DB3 or something like that.
Right. So yeah, exactly what we expect when we
Yep.
get a full season
Right.
from an elite talent like that.
Oh, he's so good.
I know. I know. Oh man. Well, I think this has been awesome. This is
Yeah.
my brain has just so many things have just clicked for me right now. And I'm like really excited to continue to dive into this research and understand, that side of the football. Again, so many of us who haven't played or studied organized football and understanding these positions and definitions and things like that, I think really benefited from this. So thank you, first of all, so
My
much.
pleasure.
Welcome back to the channel.
Yeah.
I know you're doing awesome, awesome things over there, football guys. We're all so very happy, so very proud that you're working with them and doing
I
great things.
appreciate that.
So yeah. So tell us,
I couldn't have done it without you guys, man. That's all I can say,
yeah,
and whole crew
you've
at IDP, guys. I would not be where I am today without IDP, guys.
we are so grateful to have had you, and yeah, definitely hope to see you on the screen again
Oh, yeah.
very very soon in the future. Here, we're during the season we're going to be cranking this thing out. We might even try to give the people 2 episodes a week, where we're going to do our best to do that. It might be a different format.
Right.
It might be just more shooting the stuff, but which that's the most fun ones
I love
anyway.
doing
So.
that.
So why don't you tell everyone what you're working on, where they can find you, all that good stuff.
Alright, you can find me on Twitter at JoeyTheTooth IDP. All my written work, rankings, projections. We have dynasty and regular redraft projections at footballguys.com. You can buy my book that I wrote on Amazon. That was a fun COVID project. Sweet.
Yes, I remember. I remember.
That was interesting. But yep, you can find everything I do at footballguys.com. I think I just finished my 14th article of the preseason. Just been
Awesome.
cranking all off season, and then you'll find weekly content from me. Usually, it's going to be again this season. It's going to be streaming DLs. So I've been
Oh,
studying defensive line like heck the
yeah,
past few years, and that's kind of where I found my niche. So it's like
yeah,
finding guys to stream each week, especially with true position coming around.
Yeah.
And me preaching
Beautiful.
draft linebackers, I better be able to back it up with these guys.
You are the Johnny the Greek of defensive linemen now.
I
So
appreciate it.
that's yeah. Awesome stuff. We really appreciate you coming on. I'm Dynasty Sand on Twitter. DMs are open. Love to help you answer your questions, manage your teams, all that good stuff. Find all of our work at idpguys.org. And thank you everyone for listening. See you next week.